What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 419 of the Established Run NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher here with Drew Dinkmeyer to talk a couple hot teams and a couple not so hot in Philly with some injuries there, giving a little bit away on who we're going to talk about last. But Dink, we're in here. We got a little sample. How you feeling? How's it going?
Yeah, feeling good. Excited to talk about some of these teams that have been strong starters early in the season. And then, like you said, a Philadelphia team that's been a little bit disappointing, but the NBA action's been good. Enjoying it. Ready to talk more about it.
Yeah, we talked about two undefeated teams left. We talked a little bit about OKC and how good they're going to be. We're going to talk about the only 5-0 team. OKC's 4-0, but the Cavs. Hashtag our Cavs. I feel really good about my bold pick about putting them third in the East in our preseason pod. Let me hand you some stats here first. It's just everything is just so good. They're first in effective field goal percentage, third in defense, fourth in half court defense, second in offense behind the nuclear Celtics. If you take away that first game where the Celtics just destroyed the Knicks, they're basically the best. Top 5 in transition offense. They're funneling mid range shots on defense, 25th. And they're not taking mid range and they're giving up mid range. On the other end, it's just like full optimized. That's a thing I want to talk about with the Warriors as well. So they're like checking all the boxes here, crushing in the pick and roll stuff they're running, but the transition's been big. That was what really put them away against the Lakers last night. So just from how this team's playing, and again, this is a huge trend. This is why we were so high on Mobley, so high on Mitchell, higher on Garland, all this stuff. But the preseason carryover, A, are you buying it? And then B, is just like, is this team like kind of for real?
For real, in terms of like a true title contender, I'm not buying that just yet.
Like they're in the, I would say for real would be in the next tier behind the Celtics, like that kind of for real.
Yeah, I think we've seen them before play really well in the regular season. The first 5 games of the season, they've played Toronto, Detroit, Washington in 3 of those 5. So I think we do need to like contextualize all these numbers are small samples and heavily influenced by opponents at this early stage of the season. Which some of these teams we're talking about, we'll talk through that. I think Cleveland, the things that I like that I'm seeing from them is continued growth from Evan Mobley offensively, from an aggressiveness standpoint, from a shooting perspective. Those are really big things that could potentially unlock this team further. They have all of their key players are in their prime years and ascending. So that's really valuable just naturally that you're getting continued growth from those players. The bench, even without Max Strus to start the season, the bench has looked pretty good. Karis LeVert's played really well, especially on-ball defense early in the season. Mm-hmm. They've decided to, like, their whole plan of attack has been to be more aggressive defensively, especially on ball handlers. And that has worked really well, but they've also played a lot of really inexperienced ball handling teams so far. So I think all signs looking good so far. They'll be able to integrate Max Strus as the season goes on. And that depth should be really strong because like Ty Jerome looks capable now as a backup ball handler, as like kind of the third or fourth ball handler. They had a little bit of a weakness at that spot in the past. He's played reasonably well. George Niang and Strus for the additions they made last year to try to shore up kind of things. They've been, other than the injury to Strus, they've been pretty healthy so far. Everybody's been playing. Last year, we missed a lot of games from Jared Allen. We missed a lot of games from Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So I think if you zoom out on Cleveland, they've been this kind of second tier East team that's on an ascending path. But last year got a little bit sidetracked mostly because of injury stuff. And then I think now the way that they're playing, they're still continuing to build off of this continuity, still continuing to build off being a young ascending team. They're adding in Kenny Atkinson as the coach, who's really kind of pushing the ways to optimize the edges a little bit, as you alluded to, in terms of where their shot profile is compared to their opponents. All those are really great things in the small sample. I still think of them as like an ascending second tier East team. And I think if you zoomed out, that's where we were like 2 years ago on them, basically. And then they got bounced by the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, didn't play with a lot of physicality. Last year sort of struggled in the physicality aspect with Orlando, and that series ends up going 7 in a series that we thought they had more talent than Orlando. So I still want to see this continue to translate against better competition, but it's certainly great. I mean, their point differential is incredible. They're just destroying teams. So right now, they've done you can only play the schedule that's in front of you. And they took advantage of a Lakers team that's been playing very well early in the season, and they just ran it right down their throats yesterday. So all systems go, all things great. My only context is it's 5 games. 3 of them are against some of the worst teams in the league, and we still haven't seen this team do that stuff in the playoffs. But I'm certainly more optimistic on them being maybe towards the top of that second tier East team. And I think if you made the case, let's say from a regular season perspective, all the things that I've said about the New York Knicks and the things that I've liked about them, Cleveland has all of that same stuff on their side, right? So like, I think if you wanted to say, hey, are you more optimistic that Cleveland is the same or better than the Knicks going forward, I think that's reasonable. If you want to say that they're in Boston's tier or knocking on the door of Boston's tier, I don't think we're anywhere close to that just yet.
Oh yeah, I don't think that would be big time buying into recency bias. I don't think anyone who, despite Boston losing last night, feels they're anywhere close to Boston. But yeah, I want to Evan Mobley. There was a quote back in the preseason where Kenny Atkins said that made my ears perk up. He's like, oh, Evan Mobley's gonna lead this team in scoring, and he's already done it twice for a couple games. So not lead the team in scoring like a couple games, and he's already done it twice out of 5 games. It's truly amazing that they're giving him the ball in the post so much, letting him run pick and roll, inverted stuff. That's really, really cool. That's something that you never would have ever seen from JB. So yeah, adding these little wrinkles. And then the other thing that's kind of different is the impact that Darius Garland's had. We talked about this a little bit in the content yesterday. He's out driving Donovan Mitchell, 14.2 to 11. The potential assist, the passing, the on-ball defense has been better from Garland. He looks really, really good. And if Garland could be the player that they kind of hoped he was, I mean, I think you and I, most people I know, were like, oh, Darius Garland's like the next big thing. He had a slow start to his career because of injury in college, and he's going to come around. He's got so much range. He's fast. He could drive, all this good stuff. If Darius Garland could be that player that looked like he was going to be after that really, really down year from getting his jaw wired shut from the fracture there, like that's a game changer. You mentioned Strus coming back. And I just love how this team, gets shots. And we know they're rim deep, like having good rim defense and being able to take that part of the game away and being able to press up on ball handlers, which has been a big reason why Garland's been better on that end. They're going to be tough to beat. So again, like they're not, I don't know how many wins they'd have to get before we'd even like put them close to Boston, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Anybody else? And LeVert too, man. The catch and shoot game, that was something Atkinson talked a lot about, the ball pressure. I always thought LeVert could be a good defender just because he's got
long arms.
Length. He's pretty quick hit, quick twitch. And they've unlocked something there. I think that's been really, really impactful. Dean Wade, got to shout him out too.
Yeah,
he's guarded some pretty good ball handlers. Cade guarded LeBron a bunch last night. You look at his defensive matchup charts, it's pretty strong. So, really getting something out of everything besides that 1 second half against the Knicks. They cut down Ty Jerome. They cut down Okoro. Okoro's been a little quiet, but really getting production up and down the roster. Anything you want to close out with on the cast before we talk Warriors?
I think just the big thing is like you look at the core 4 of this roster, right? Like Donovan Mitchell, age 28 season, Jared Allen, age 26 season, Darius Garland, age 25 season, Evan Mobley, age 23 season. Like these guys are all ascending. So even if we're saying like, hey, second tier East team right now, 2 years from now, we could be talking about top tier East team with the way that the growth and development goes. And getting back to Garland, injuries were the primary concern coming out of the draft. And, he played 59 games his rookie year, 54 games his second year. Then his third year, his age 22 and age 23 seasons, he's averaging like 22 and 8 and looks really, really good. And then last year, we talked about Garland a lot last year, how he just didn't look like he had the same burst. He didn't look like he had the same acceleration to kind of get past people at the rim. And then he was sort of in more contested rim situations and just not finishing as well. The burst looks back this year. It looks like he's beating people off the dribble cleaner. And that just adds such a big dimension to this team because we know Donnie is very, very good at creating space for his jump shot. He's very, very good at creating space in terms of like taking angles around the rim to get to the rim. He's always been able to do that. They didn't have anybody else last year that could create space for themselves because Garland just didn't look healthy enough to do so, and Evan Mobley wasn't confident enough to do so. It seems like I'm not in his head. Now Garland is is making that stride forward. And then the way that they're using Evan Mobley in terms of the situations they're getting him into are allowing him to create space in attack a little bit more confidently in isolation as well. So now they have three people, and then Jared Allen creates space with his verticality and the rolling, and right. So like now the offense is just multi-dimensional, and the shot diet is more transition because of how they're trying to play with pace. That's all really, really good stuff, and I think that's all sustainable. So I think it's very likely that we see Cleveland by the end of the season as a top 4 team playing with home court advantage in the playoffs in the first round.
Yeah, and one other point too, like their rim defense has been more of a product of efficiency. Like over the years they were like middle of the pack volume, but their efficiency was so good. And you would think, we talk about this from time to time, giving up missed layups is like a really good way to run up the other end. You see that a lot, like missed layup, then boom, run down the court. Like you see that like 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game here, and it's nice to see that they just understand like the simple stuff that us basketball content people like just think makes no sense that they couldn't get going. So yeah, just picking up the edges has been really, really strong there. Anything else you want to mention on Cavs before we move on? If they're just such a good story. Cool. All right, Warriors. I'm going to jam you with stats here because I got so many of them. So there's just so much here. Like the way, yes, their schedule's soft, and like that Clippers loss was tough, but they lost Steph that game. So anyways, second in defense, second in half court. OKC doesn't count. Okay, so basically take OKC out. They're the best defense. Again, matchup. Eighth in offense. Third. These are my favorite stats here. They're third in transition points. First in transition points against. Third in catch and shoot point against, third in catch and shoot points for, first in passes, first in assists, first in potential assists, fourth highest 3-point rate on offense, near the bottom in 3-point rate allowed on defense, second highest mid-range stuff allowed. Like they are full 24 optimized way to score, way to stop. Like yes, again schedule, but like to be that high in that many areas that I care about, you care about, a lot of basketball people care about, speaks a lot to me. To do what they did to the Pelicans without Steph, like imagine that. Yes, the Pelicans are banged up, but they own them both those games besides that first quarter of the first game. So 12-man rotation, a lot of coaches. We saw Billy Donovan, hey, we got to lengthen our rotation. We want to play fast. Taylor Jenkins, hey, we want to play fast. Let's play 11. They're doing it, and they're doing it really well without Wiggins yesterday too. So yeah, just really, really crushing. I just love the way Kerr has his team playing right now. Thoughts on the Warriors?
First thing that I want to pontificate on a little bit is you just mentioned kind of the lengthier rotations, playing faster. I don't know if that's sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will be in terms of the long grind of the NBA season, but I think it's taking advantage right now of a lot of teams just aren't in shape. And I think because of the preseason, not everybody playing full minutes and whatnot, I think got some teams that are trying to take their rotations from preseason rotations to regular season rotations. I think those teams are maybe more vulnerable to kind of wearing down at the end of the game. Chicago is playing against an Orlando team that's been tightening their rotation a little bit. They make a big comeback late in the second half. Chicago did that against a Memphis team that a lot of their guys have been playing on minutes limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wonder if that's an aspect of something that's happening right now. Like Portland barely, their preseason was pretty limited in terms of what they played. And, Golden State comes out and blows the doors off them with the waves of energy. I think the NBA season is a grind, and maybe during the flu months and different things like that, maybe if you can stay healthier and have 12 versus other teams 9, maybe that'll work. But I'm a little bit skeptical right now that it's a little bit fool's goldish. We'll see if it continues to hold up. In terms of Golden State, it's interesting that they've been so good defensively because the personnel hasn't really changed. It's like Trace Jackson Davis wasn't considered kind of like an elite defender. Dre is there. That's the big difference. What have you seen from Golden State that makes you think that the defense is legit and sustainable, not just schedule influenced, And like, what are you seeing from them that like is really the difference makers between how they're defending this year compared to past years? Because the first thing that I looked at was turnovers, and their turnover per game stuff is similar. It's not like they're turning over the ball a lot less. Maybe I need to check dead ball versus live turnovers, but that's where they've struggled in the past, right? Is like all the transition stuff they allowed was because they were a high turnover team. They haven't been much different on the turnover front. So how are they doing it?
Well, I just think, well, from a defensive perspective, yeah, the fresh legs I think really helps. Like their switch scheme, they're really staying in front of people. Part of the reason why their rim defense has been pretty good overall too. So I think that stands out. And we talked about it in our Slack, and like Draymond looks really healthy, and like a healthy Draymond could really go a long way for your defense. And that's like the sustainability where I think things could fall off. But they have had, and that's part of the reason why. Yeah, to your point, I don't know if I'd know the live ball turnovers, but I just watching the first game against the Pelicans, like they were just getting so many easy stuff. The Blazers game, just every time turnover, boom, 2 points to the other end, even 3 points a bunch of times. I think Buddy Hield's still first in transition scoring per game. So yeah, it's just capitalizing on, and it's more efficiency. I think they're first in per possession transition stuff. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. They've had a couple big turnover spike games that I think has really, really promoted that. And I think teams are just, that's largely due to the schedule. But even the Clippers game, they still were able to get some points there overall. But yeah, I just think their defense being so good to start, excluding what OKC did, they're off to a ridiculously. Their defense is just fueling the way they're playing, and I think they've got a chance to be okay. Wiggins, before he got hurt, looked pretty good. Moody's been an okay defender. I don't think Paz is a bad defender, so they're just getting it together. But it really all starts with Draymond, honestly, for me.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just trying to think through in terms of like what the differences are between this year and last year on this team, right? Because like you would expect Dre, I mean, he's more available this year, right, than he has been last year in terms of percentage of games to start the season. So maybe that's the entirety of the difference. They've had Gary Payton available as well. He's a wonderful defender as well. And then, but it seems to me like scheme wise, it's the same stuff that they've always been doing. Like personnel wise, it's a lot of the same players that they had last year. So that's where I'm like, I can't put my finger on what's really different and why it makes me like maybe this is a little bit more schedule induced than like player induced. But Dre just being available is like such a big deal for defenses, which like in the same way that Alex Caruso, if he's just on the floor, like your defense is already like league average defense, basically just having like one of these guys on the floor. Melton was the guy that we thought like was going to really improve things a lot defensively. He's been hurt like half the game so far, so it's an interesting start for them. I think the thing that I've noticed is on the offensive side how, and maybe this is a testament to the more limited minutes, but Buddy Hield's averaging 24 minutes a game right now, and in those 24 minutes he is just flying all over the place. And in a way that Steph, and this is one of the things that I think most players will articulate on Steph that makes him so special. Everybody obviously knows the shooting, but many players will comment on the endurance and the stamina that he has to run at full speed the way he does during the game off screens and everything, and how hard that is to do for 34, 35 minutes a game, and how much pressure it puts on the defense. And Buddy Hield is doing that now in a way similar to the way Steph has in terms of putting pressure on the defense by just constantly moving all the time. He's just in motion everywhere. And it's cutting to the middle of the paint and catching the ball and then kind of making plays, or whether it's kind of the traditional Klay Thompson back screen and flares. Like he's just always in motion, and it's stressing the defense in all the moments. And I think Klay just didn't, because Klay was playing 30 minutes a game, I think Klay just didn't have the same juice, that it wasn't as impactful in the same way. So that's the thing that I've noticed so far, is it seems like they're playing a little faster than they even played last year, not just in terms of pace, in terms of number of possessions, but in terms of the chaos that their motion offense can create for defenses. And I've been impressed that they've been able to kind of keep some offensive continuity even in the absence of Steph, which obviously will continue to be tested, because that was our biggest concern coming into the year, is like they are 1 point of failure. This is a helicopter. It's like a single point of failure. If this engine goes down, like we're in trouble. And Steph goes down and they're still running. And it's not like Kuminga's having big offensive games, which is what we thought would need to happen in those instances, right? It's been that they've been able to still figure out things through just kind of their motion offense as a whole, which has been impressive.
Yeah, just to the passing point, last year they were third in passes per game at 299, and this year they've upped it to 338. So they added like 40
Wow.
passes per game. Yeah, that is an absurd number. And I
Yeah.
mentioned, first
Yeah,
and
that's a 10,
assists.
that's a 10+% increase. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah, a little tied to pace for sure because
Yeah.
they are playing faster pace,
Yeah.
but that's a big number. And again, a tribute to there. This was like the first two preseason games we saw, like the Hawaii game, and I forget who else. I was like, good God, man, they are just swing three, swing three. Like I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they are like jamming this thing down our throat, and
And
it's
the ball
it's
gets
been a
the
trend.
ball gets from side to side. Like that's the thing when you watch
Yep.
Warriors possessions, which any like old head basketball coach will tell you, like the best possession is the ball sees each side of the floor and then the person with the ball gets into the paint. That's the key to like a great offensive possession, and that is happening so often with Golden State offensive possessions right now. The ball sees both sides of the floor, it touches the paint, and it finds an open shooter or an open layup, and it's been really pretty to watch. That's why I've been like raving about the Buddy Hield experience on Golden State because it's been so fun. I love watching basketball played that way. It's just
Yep.
super super fun.
Yep. And you roasted me for a Kuminga pass the other day, but he had two like he had an opportunity for a corner three last night, pump fake, closeout, and then got a shot at the basket that was really nice. He did
I
it
just
earlier too on the wing. Go ahead.
I just the roasting is the point is like I think you're like a parent with a newborn baby that like anything they do is like needs to be told to the world
Yep.
because it's so special to you. Uh 80% of the league is making plays like that every night and we're not highlighting them, but because it's Kaminga, because you
Yep.
guys are obsessed with Kaminga, we got to talk about it.
He's been. I'm just saying that's growth for him though. Like he's like if you had to list reasons why the Warriors are on a good start, he'd be like probably not even in the top 10. Like
No, he's been bad.
yeah, he's been
He's
bad.
been
Yeah, for
terrible.
sure.
He's been terrible, but we're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he made a good pass this one time. He
Yeah.
missed a terrible box out late in the game yesterday on a
Yep. Oh
rebound.
God, that was so bad.
He's shooting 40% from the field, 15% from three. He's been awful,
Mhm.
but he made a good pass. So
Yeah, he did. And this driving a closeout, let's go. Things you learn like fifth grade. Go Kuminga. Do you want to talk Lindy Waters? The hall pass king.
yeah,
Just so good. Shout out to Underdog and Ryan Schwipfinger, who's on our team to come up with that for Underdog. That just killed me. But yeah,
good,
that's
good,
just a
good
testament
bit
to
of
depth. Then
good
but
bit of content. Certainly a testament to depth. He wasn't very good last night.
nope.
He's been pretty mediocre most of his NBA career. So I don't think we need to spend much time on Lindy Waters other than funny piece of content that if you're unfamiliar in one of these dudes who stands in a heavily trafficked area with drunk people interviewing people, interviewed a girl and a guy about a hall pass, and the girl was like Lindy Waters, and the guy was like had no idea who that was because most people would not know who Lindy Waters is. So that's the reference from the Underdog account last night if you were initiated. But no, I think the depth is like it's more a testament to like her is very committed to playing deep numbers of rotation. So I think like 10 is the minimum we're ever going to get unless injuries really raid this team. I think that's the note. There's no note in terms of like if Lindy Waters isn't any more valuable than Gary Payton, and we wouldn't be talking about Gary Payton. And so like, yeah.
Yep. But yeah, like Looney's giving him good minutes too. They've just got so many pieces to adapt. So yeah, they've got to be kind of on the ball, but I think they can kind of play different ways. And I just really love the transition. Like that's like the big. That's why OKC is so good. Like part of the reason why OKC broke out so much last year is because they play fast and they still stop you from playing fast.
Yeah.
And I think if that could continue, no matter who they have, that could go a long way. So I guess with that, where did anything you want to add before you answer this?
Well, I was just going to ask.
Ahead.
Like, I'm just not certain that's sustainable. Like, I know that's working right now just with this roster. Like, can they keep running at this level? I don't know. Maybe it's with 12 guys, 10 guys, they can do it. But like, it's an older roster just naturally. So I worry about that part of it. I do think like Dre is such a good defender and they're organized and they can slow down transition. And Dre in transition is outrageous. Like he had a couple of plays in a row in the Portland game where it's like the classic 2-on-1 where Dre's the last defender at the rim and he's just baiting you into throwing the lob. And then as soon as you go to throw the lob, he moves back and knocks it away. It's like a classic Draymond Green play. But I was going to ask you, like, if you had to say, what are the top 3 reasons for the Warriors' success? Like when you were saying like Kuminga's not the top 10 or whatever, where would you start? I honestly think like number 1 and 2 for me, I don't know what order, would be Wiggins and Hield. Like Wiggins has been phenomenal early in the season. And we've kind of like long talked about the Warriors with how Andrew Wiggins goes is kind of how the ceiling of the Warriors goes, right? When they won their last championship, he was exceptional through that playoff run, and especially in the finals against Boston. And so like we've seen like Andrew Wiggins to start the year shooting 58% from 3, rebounding the ball really effectively, not turning the ball over, getting up a bunch of threes. It's like 58% on 6 threes per game. Like this is the best version of Andrew Wiggins we've seen since that playoff run. And I think that's the thing that is like, if we get good Andrew Wiggins this year, and look, he's still 29 years old. This is still like prime of his career. If we get good Andrew Wiggins this year, then I think maybe it's a bigger adjustment on the Warriors' expectations than anything else that's going on with them.
Yeah, I think I would say. I mean, I think it's got to be Buddy, right? Like Buddy's been insane. Those games that he just has, that comeback game they had against the Pelicans, the first game, he'd probably be number 1. I think Dre having fresh legs would be number 2. And then one thing, just with Buddy, this might sound weird, but isn't it a coincidence that the Pacers offense last year got a little bit worse when he went away? Like his on-off stuff was like, I think like 6-7.
Oh, do we want to do this? Because I'm ready to do this.
Do you want to
talk
do
about this?
Oh, did I get you?
About this? We might want to transition. We can transition because this will be actually a good transition. Philadelphia 76ers. What the hell? Why weren't you playing Buddy Hield last year? I don't understand. Your offense couldn't generate anything outside of Embiid at the end of the season, and you got Buddy Hield just sitting rotten on your bench. Everywhere the guy has gone, he's produced shooting and volume shooting and efficient volume shooting. It looked like the perfect Daryl Morey acquisition. It's like, oh, we're going to get the undervalued 3-point shooter to stretch the defense, and then they don't play him. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, there's a number of reasons that Philadelphia 76ers fans are sitting at home right now going, what the hell, including Tobias Harris just shoving it down their throat last night. Mm-hmm. But they got to be looking at Buddy Hield and going like, what were we doing? What was that all about? I still can't get over. And yes, Indiana's offense got worse without Buddy Hield, but I cannot believe Philadelphia wasn't playing Buddy Hield in the playoffs last year. Yeah, just incredible.
Let's stay with the Sixers. I'll ask some Warriors questions. Sixers tied together. With that, take a wild guess who's last in catch and shoot points so far in the NBA season. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. They've got nothing besides Tyrese Maxey. Their offense is a complete disaster. 27th in offense, 28th in half-court offense, 27th. They have Tyrese Maxey in their 27th in transition offense. 12th in transition defense. They've been kind of okay there. They're the anti-Warriors. They're last in assists, last in potential assists. It's just been Maxey, and nothing else. The depth really hurts. Obviously, this is, anyone who follows the NBA at all knows that Embiid and Paul George missing has really, really hurt their depth. They got nothing, man, and their offense is killing them. They have one of the worst offenses in the league, and I don't know if it's going to get any better. Do you think that like anything besides, I don't even like, how does this team even be like 20th in offense until these guys come back? Should mention Paul George maybe getting closer.
Yeah, and while we've talked about some of these teams who have benefited from, their numbers being maybe a little bit inflated because of the competition that they've played early in the season, just want to highlight that so far Philadelphia has played 2 of their 4 games against Toronto and Detroit. They lost both of those games, and then a third game against Indiana, who defensively, right, has not been one of the better defensive teams in the league the last 2 years because of the pace they play with. So this is ugly production.
And the Bucks lost their other 3 games besides being the Sixers.
Yeah. And so this is ugly production against favorable schedule. This is real bad. Now, this is sort of what happens when the whole roster is built around Joel Embiid and there's no Joel Embiid. I mean, everybody on their roster that they built around was supposed to be sort of a fit around Joel. It's not a lot of shot creation on this roster. It is more catch and shoot players, but if there's nobody to create catch and shoot opportunities, it's hard to get catch and shoot. Like the player themselves is only part of the equation of generating catch and shoot shots. It's the offense that can create those catch and shoot shots. And they only have one guy on the offense that can potentially get into the paint and create open looks, and that's Tyrese Maxey. And that one point, at this point, Tyrese has been burdened to take 25 shots a game. Basically, he's taken 111 field goal attempts in 4 games, and defenses are just like, yeah, like we're gonna let you shoot yourself. It's kind of like a boxing match, like a heavyweight bout, where it's like we know we're gonna let you shoot and just shoot and shoot and shoot. In the fourth quarter, let's see if you still got it. Right? We're not gonna leave and help off of these catch and shoot guys because we don't really need to. And we're just gonna see how long can you take a 40% usage rate. And what we've seen from Tyrese Maxey in most of these games is like pretty good first halves and then falling apart in the second half. And I think it's just too much. The guy's averaging 42 minutes a game and like 27 shots a game. Like it's just ridiculous. So none of this works without Joel Embiid. It might work better with Paul George when we get Paul George back, but who knows when we're getting these guys back, right? Nobody can get good information out of the Sixers. They just got fined for not providing accurate information on medical updates. A lot of the media in the Philadelphia Sixers that covers them are pressing Coach Nick Nurse about it, and he just keeps punting on it. He keeps saying, like, I can't, we released a statement, I can't answer that. We'll know more on Friday. Who knows? So, I mean, this is a roster built to have Joel Embiid and Paul George. If they don't have them, they're a terrible team.
Yeah, and to that point, they're getting fined for not disclosing information, which hello, Sixers, because they said it was they tried to see if it was like player participation, like holding them out on purpose. No, they're holding them out because they're withholding information. Like this is we've complained about this since you and I started working together. This is what they do, and why didn't we fine them millions of dollars? Find them
like
100
player suspensions. Yeah, 100K is nothing. I mean, and I think Daryl's a wonderful GM. He's a habitual line stepper. Like he's going to toe that line every time. And they've crossed it a number of times with the injury reporting stuff. It's to the detriment of the game. And I know there's a lot of other conversations going around the game that did Daryl Morey ruin in terms of the 3-point attempts and 3-point volume and stuff. But I think in terms of like fan entertainment and enjoyment, a lack of transparency around, especially for your own fans. Like I think one of the reporters asked this, I think it was Kyle Neubeck asked, like, don't you owe something to your fans that are buying tickets for games? Like if they're going to have a chance to see Joel Embiid, like don't you owe that to have some understanding? People are buying tickets like weeks in advance trying to see, like, are they going to be able to see the product? It's just bad for the league. And so, yeah, like $100,000 fine or whatever it was isn't going to do anything. I wish they would be stronger in some of these things because I think it's detrimental to the league not being transparent on this stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully no one like copies that. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that, some teams, we joke about Doc Rivers. I honestly think Doc Rivers just doesn't know anything. He's even said that he doesn't care. Like he just like let them do their thing. I don't care. But yeah, let's get back on track. Is there anyone specifically that's like hurt them more than anyone? Like I think Drummond's been fine, like classic minutes eater, but like I talk about this a lot. Like you don't want your defense being like Andre Drummond behind you because he's just out of place all the time. Lowry looks old. Oubre's been just so like there's so many like mistake prone players on this team that just compounds and just causes them issues. Is there anyone specifically that you think is hurting them more than someone else?
No, I don't. It's more that yes, Joel. Not having Joel is hurting them more than anything else. Like the problem is in that I don't mean that to be like that's Joel's fault. If he's not healthy, he's not healthy. But it's that this roster is guys are being asked to do things that that's not their skill set. They're being like Caleb Martin is being asked to like create off the dribble and have like pull up jumpers. That's not what you want from Caleb Martin. So not surprisingly, he's shooting 35% from the field, right? These guys are shooting more contested looks than they're accustomed to shooting because these are a bunch of guys that are your third, fourth, fifth options on offense that are now being asked to be your second option on offense a lot of times. And it's different in terms of the level of defensive attention and whatnot. and because they don't have anybody else that can get the ball into the paint but Tyrese
Mhm.
Maxey, maybe Oubre on occasion, but Oubre is not a decision maker in terms of getting into the paint, right? He's just a finisher. And so like they have one guy on the whole roster that can get to the paint and make a decision. That's not a way to win basketball games. It's like,
Mhm.
and too much responsibility is on Maxey's plate right now. So like I don't think anybody individually is playing, nobody's playing well. I don't think anybody individually is playing so poorly that they're outrageously hurting the team. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of like they're all being asked to do too much. And when you're being asked to do too much, like efficiency is going to fall off.
Mhm. And to that point, Caleb Martin, 11.3 drives per game this year. That's up from 5.4. So straight doubling that. And again, like, the Heat don't have a lot of like heavy volume players like Maxi either. So that's just a crazy boost. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, they just need somebody back, man. And we talked about them like kind of like really fine tuning the edges, adding seventh, eighth, nine, but making your seventh, eighth, nine your four, five, six
Yeah.
or whatever is
Yeah.
a big deal, and they're really really feeling the difference. Like having just such a gap from their first player to their number two player, three player is like really really hurting them. And that's really
Yeah.
that's the problem when you have like a super team. You have three big guys, and then that's the way you have to do it. You're just missing
I
the
mean,
ranges.
imagine the Heat years with LeBron and Bosh and Wade. If we had LeBron and Wade out, and it was Bosh and Udonis Haslam and Mario Chalmers, we'd all be like, "This team is terrible."
Mm-hmm.
And like that's where we're at, right? It's the roster construction just makes it so that like they're not going to be able to stay afloat. What we thought coming into the season, right, was that we'd get enough between Embiid. Like I was thinking coming into the season between those two guys, we're getting like 120 games, which is
Mm-hmm.
still a lot of missed games. But I was thinking like we're getting eight. I thought we were getting like 78 to 80 of one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple like a quarter of the season with both of them. That's what I was kind of thinking, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
Maxi's super durable, so I was confident this would all be viable with one of those two guys out there. It's not viable with both of them out. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not.
Yeah, and like that story about Drummond, like, oh yeah, Embiid called me. I was all psyched to play. Like, buddy, Drummond wasn't in the rotation every night last year, so I don't know about that. But and we're kind of seeing that kind of pan out. Shout out Gerson Yabusele. He's been kind of their fun story. I think he's gonna earn minutes when Embiid comes back. All right, let's put a bow on the two teams. How if you had to re-rank the Sixers, like if we were doing the standings game, how low are we going here, man? This seems really bad.
um, it's such a difficult question to answer without any legitimate medical information
Mm-hmm.
because I really just don't know. Paul George on his podcast and stuff seemed to be optimistic that it would maybe be a week or two into the season. If that's the case, things will get much more sustainable soon. But I think one of the things that we're seeing is some of these rosters that we thought would be like unbelievably bad, like Brooklyn, for example, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't made these trades that would make them unbelievably bad just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so however long that takes, we're seeing a lot of mediocrity in the Eastern Conference, which is good for. And I think Philadelphia planned on this. I think Philadelphia knew like the Eastern Conference, so many teams are tanking. We can
Mm-hmm.
have an injury heavy roster and still like avoid playing and stuff. And I think they knew all this, so I think it was an educated guess that they were
Mm-hmm.
making. Um, but yeah, like it all depends on how much Embiid and how much Paul George we're getting. If we're getting combined between the two of them 80 games this year, I think we're looking at them borderline playing. If we're
Borderline, I
talking,
think for sure playing if they only get 80
you're
games
probably
in.
right. You're probably right. You're
Yeah.
probably right for sure playing. I'm just trying to
Okay.
think so Cleveland, Boston, Cleveland, Orlando, Knicks, Milwaukee. That's 6.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for sure playing. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's probably right.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you're getting 60, I think we're talking like maybe back end playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how dependent this roster is. If you told me they're not playing the rest of the season, I'm telling you this team is in conversation for the number one pick.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yep. Like they're just shut Maxi down at that point. Like why get him hurt and ask him to play 40 minutes a game?
Yeah.
You're just dealing
I
with
don't
that
think
next
they
year.
have their picks, so I don't think
Yep.
that's like I don't think that's a real legitimate thing. But my point being is that that's how bad they are. Like this team will be favored over very few teams right now. They play Memphis at home, and then they go on a West Coast trip at Phoenix, at Clippers, at Lakers. I mean, we are looking at 1-7.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll see if they take care of Memphis at home on Saturday. Maybe it'll be 2-6. We'll see if they get Joel and PG back soon, but we're looking at potentially 1-7 out of the gates. That's a tough start.
Yeah, cleaning the glass has an expected win total that kind of factors in all the like spread stats, offensive, defensive stats. They have them projected. Again, this is projecting what has happened. It's nothing
Right.
but what's going to happen.
Right.
20.6 wins is the rate they're playing at right now with their performance on offense, defense.
Which would have been the second lowest win total. I think there was a 20.5 this year.
The Nets bottomed out at 18.5. I think it came
18.5. Okay, yeah. So that would have been that they're playing as if they're the second worst team.
Yeah, teams worse than them for fun. Utah 10.1 expected. Oof. Last team to get a win. San Antonio and Washington. Washington winning streak. The Sixers would kill for one of those. Let's spin it to the Warriors. Are they like? Have they surpassed the play-in level for you yet? It sounds like no. You had a lot of skepticism in your voice talking about the Warriors.
It's just tough to sort through the West, right? I'd say teams that I'm feeling good about being out of the play-in in the West right now, like being firmly in the playoff, would be OKC, Phoenix, Dallas.
Mm-hmm, I'd agree.
And then and then it's like a mishmash of I think Lakers are next top of my list with Golden State.
AD hurt his hip last night.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's okay, just to be clear, but like, it's
probably. Oh, yeah. So the next tier is like Lakers, Kings, Warriors. Oh, Timberwolves are clearly out of
Nuggets.
The Timberwolves
we didn't talk.
The Timberwolves are going to figure it out. I don't know the Nuggets are going to figure it out. The Timberwolves are going to figure it out that they are clearly out of play-in level. I don't know the Nuggets will, and that's not an if this was the East, they would. This is more of a conversation of the strength of the West than an indictment on the Nuggets. But I don't know that the Nuggets are going to figure it out to a level that they are clearly a top 6 team in the West this year.
Yeah.
I think
they need overtime to get to teams who are like laughing.
Exactly. We now have conversations that I think the Nuggets are maybe more aligned with Sacramento, Lakers, Memphis. We'll see what happens with Memphis. Memphis is kind of a mess right now.
Bane a weak injury, not good.
Yeah, I think they're more in that range right now.
Yeah, I think they're in the top half. Like I think Suns I'm buying, Mavs I'm mostly buying. Luka got dinged up again. So yeah, I think they're towards the top. Like I think they've got a better chance to be out of the plan than in it for me. But I'm biased though. I was into the
Warriors before.
So.
I think that might be right. I've been impressed by them, but they played a pretty soft schedule.
Yeah.
It's just like Steph already getting hurt is just like how, and Kuminga really hasn't played well, and they're still winning. So maybe I would say like if
Steph though.
I've been more impressed by the Lakers. Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably 50. It's probably greater than 50%.
Yeah,
out of the play.
I don't know. The Lakers haven't played well their last couple games. Again, just getting killed in transition. You know, JJ really. One thing that was fun was like kind of an aside quickly. You know, JJ like really blamed himself for the Suns play because they weren't doubling Durant until late, and he's like, we should have did that earlier. Shout out to JJ, you know, to admit that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other quick notes to get out of here?
No, as always, if you are interested in checking out I do have, before I get into the pitches, scheduling note. We are next week because of the really heavy Monday schedule. The NBA is taking off Tuesday for Election Day. Get out there and vote, participate in your democracy. It's really, really important. But the NBA takes that day off. There's a ton of games on Monday. We usually record Mondays and Thursdays. We're going to not record on Monday next week, and we're not going to interrupt the ability for team members to get out and vote on Tuesday. So we're just going to do one podcast next week. Thursday, that'll be November 7th, will be the podcast release for the next edition of Established Run NBA podcast. And we might experiment with going with a cadence of once a week going forward. The content burden load on Mike and I on the premium side is pretty heavy. So just be aware on that front. These podcasts will still cover a lot in the time that we get through them, but it might be moving more to a once a week cadence going forward. On the premium side, if you're interested in checking us out, establishtheRun.com/subscribe-MBA is where you can find all the detail on our premium product offerings, our in-season DFS coverage with Mike Gallagher's matchups 3 times a week, our live shows 5 times a week with myself and Mike Gallagher, projections for every game, strategy sessions. I did an NBA DFS office hours today for an hour. We do those every other week where I sit and answer your questions, walk through how to use an optimizer, how I'm thinking about slates, how to attack stuff, contest selection, all sorts of good stuff in the office hours. I got a lot of good content on the NBA DFS side behind the paywall, so you can check us out there. If you're interested in the prop side, highly recommend reading that FAQ if you have any interest there. Those markets are tight. It's tougher to get bets down. We're off to a solid, okay start this year. We're up like 14 units, something like that through the first week of the season, 12% ROI, a little bit lower than our expectations, but we're still feeling confident in our process going forward. You can check out all the information at establishtheRun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details on our premium product offerings.
Yeah, if you're missing us for 2 episodes, make sure you check out our YouTube channel for the injury show. You get plenty of ball talk along with getting updated on the injury news that you need to have it. If you don't have the news, I always say betting information is better than betting any edge you think you have in NBA. So appreciate you guys listening. Catch you guys next time.